All right, my name is Chris Campbell. I'm a practicing CPA and I work with small businesses and individuals to help them pay the least amount of taxes possible while keeping them out of jail. So today I wanted to give a quick pointer about oh some taxes and you find yourself in collections. So if you have a balance in taxes and you're not in a position to pay it off right away, wanted to give a quick pointer or two about how you can buy yourself more time. So, uh, dealt with this with a number of clients where balance is due, usually with business owners dealing with cash flow issues. You find yourself in a situation where you owe a good amount of taxes, but you're not be in a position to pay it, or you're in a situation where your income fluctuates, where you may have a balance due, but you don't have the cash at the moment to pay, but you know that you'll eventually have that cash. You're in a situation where you're getting notices from the IRS or the state, whatever taxes that there may be, income, sales, withholding. You're getting a number of notices. In some instances, you might get calls, and in some instances, you might get visits. So the pressure's on, and you got to make a payment to get this thing settled out. So one of the things that you can do to kind of stop the clock here, buy yourself a little bit more time, is to file for an abatement of penalties. If you owe taxes and the penalties are accruing for not paying, the taxing authority will charge you interest, and then they'll also charge you penalties, and those continue to accrue as you owe, right? So if you file an abatement of penalties, what it's asking that tax authority to do is wipe out the penalties. In most instances, like with the IRS, I'm sure it's probably the case with most states that they can't wipe out the interest. I know with the IRS, if you owe a balance and there's interest on it, by law, they can't wipe out the interest, but they can wipe out the penalties. You could put in for an abatement of your penalties. In most instances, when you put that in, it'll stop the clock, even if you don't necessarily have a leg to stand on as to why you want that abatement. So one reason why you get abatement is that your first time in this predicament. Most of the time, they'll give you a one-time pass, or if there's some sort of extenuating circumstance as to why you owe all these penalties, you'll get a pass. But even if you've had the money and blew it, you can get a one-time pass. Now, outside of that, unless it's something extraordinary as to why you didn't pay, you may have a hard time getting those penalties waived. In most instances, though, it stops the clock because they have to process it and come back to you with a decision as to whether your request has been granted. So they have to accept or reject your request. And while they're doing that, the clock does stop. The thing here is that process could take months because it's not automated. The taxing authority actually has to go through, usually by hand, and someone manually makes a decision. So with the way things are backed up at the IRS now, or with the low stakes, any bureaucracy, it takes a while. Just to give examples, I've been in situations where we've made these requests, and I think it was about maybe 7, 8 months before we received an answer. And while that's happening, the collection process had stopped. In this instance, the client owed quite a bit of money, and they just weren't in a position to pay it at the moment. So with this abatement request, we were able to pause the collections for a good 8, 9 months. And while that's the case, it can give you a position to start paying down on it informally, right? So you can still make payments on it, but you might be in a position where you can pay something on it, but you may not be able to pay enough installments to satisfy what the taxing authority wants. Usually, if you have a payment plan, you have to put in a whole application, they have to approve it. There's a whole process behind that. Balance is over a certain amount, you got to list all your assets, your liabilities. So it's a lot to go through to set up a payment plan. But if you go through this process where the collection is still paused, nothing's stopping you from making your own payments. You don't have to go through that process of setting up a formal agreement. Just start making payments on it. Now, the interest and the penalties still accrue while the decision is being made, but further enforcement won't take place. So gives you your opportunity to pay down at your own pace. So you can do that. And even if you're in a situation where you don't think you have a leg to stand on and it'll get rejected, you may want to do it anyway, because you can do that with a penalty abatement. The next thing you can do is go into an offer and compromise. That's another way to stop the clock. An offer and compromise is essentially you go into that taxing authority saying, hey, look, I know I owe this, but I'm just not financially in a position to get it. And it's going to be
almost impossible for you to collect this. There are circumstances where you might have blown through money assets, life happens, and you had the money and now you don't. So it's a pretty extensive process where, at least with the IRS side, you have to go and have to show your assets, your abilities, your income in order for a settlement to get granted. You're pretty much saying, hey, look, I know I owe this, but I'm not in a position to pay it. I'm going to make an offer to pay this. So it's same thing, kind of like what you may do with a credit card. You owe a bunch of money on a credit card, you can't pay. You go to the credit card company and you decide on an amount, you pay it, and they won't come after you anymore. So you can do the same thing with your tax bill. I will say though that at least with the IRS, the offer and compromise, the acceptance rate on those are relatively low. You do have a less than percent chance of getting approved because again, they really want to know your entire financial situation. And if you're married, your spouse's financial situation. They get pretty in depth about your financial situation before making a decision. But even if you have no shot of getting it approved, the whole idea is again, we're stopping the clock. With the IRS, you put an offer in, it's probably going to take at least 6 months. You probably get at least 3 to 4 months pause on your collection while they make the decision. But it has to be processed. They have to look at it and make a decision. So same thing as with the abatement request, collection stop. You don't have to worry about that taxing authority being aggressive with trying to collect their money during this process. And again, you want to take advantage of that time, start paying down what you can, especially if you think you have no shot. As I mentioned, the acceptance rate is relatively low. They really want to see that you have no means to pay this off. So you may be cash poor, but sitting on a bunch of equity and some homes, more than likely they're not going to forgive it. They are going to want you to liquidate any assets that you may have. The purpose of the exercise is you get to stop the clock and buy yourself some more time. You're in a situation where you think you'll eventually have the money to pay it off. Just again, stop the collections. Then you may want to do that and pay what you can while they're making the decision. Once they come back with the decision, hopefully you'll be in a better position to have a payment plan that you can handle. So there's a couple strategies that you can implement to buy yourself some more time. The balance will probably never go away unless it gets approved. But again, it's really all about buying yourself some time. So that's all for now. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any more questions about this particular topic or any other tax or account related questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to help.